In the curriculum support section, Neil talked about having the music books up on the music stand while students are learning their songs, even though they're not learning it from the music. And he talked about the reasons why that can be super helpful for your students. You need to be very careful about managing that process. If you've got a student who has prior music reading experience or a parent, because it is very, very tempting to refer to the sheet music if you forget where to start a song or you've forgotten a section, to just refer to the music. If they are using that music for any reason to help them practice the song, they're not applying the playing-based tools that we are teaching them. And you can manage this if you just have to have a very open discussion about it with the parents and say, look, I understand that you have a reading background, and I just want to be upfront and tell you that it is very tempting for you to use what you're familiar with to help your son practice at home. But I'm asking you, please don't do that, because you will thwart the process that I'm trying to do here. The other topic in curriculum support was about writing notes, meaning assignment notes at the end of each class. And he spent some time on this because it's important. He talks about taking sparse notes, leave it roomy, leave plenty of air, or white space around your writing, write in all capital letters, and not to write any unnecessary notes. For example, notes that are already in the materials. You do not need to repeat that. From the very beginning, it's important to be very clear that you do not want them to take any extra notes whatsoever, not in the assignment notes, not in the reference book, or anywhere. Now, you can't control what they do when they lead the lesson, but you can be very clear about what your requirements are. You can expect to encounter resistance in this area regarding not taking extra notes, because we're used to being able to write down whatever we want. We think we're going to forget things, so we write them down as insurance. And people don't understand the reason, so they're skeptical about that. So I have a couple of suggestions here to help you handle those skeptics. First of all, set up the expectations. If you don't tell them to not take extra notes, then I can guarantee you they're going to take extra notes. So you just say, only write exactly what I write, no extra notes, not in the assignment, not in your books, and then explain the reason for that. So in a nutshell, your students are learning a way of learning, and that way of learning involves processing information in a very different manner than what we're used to. So if we revert to what's familiar and comfortable to us, then that's going to get in the way of what we are teaching. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm committed to the goals of this program, and that includes my students being self-generative. And that means that they're able to process things the way I'm teaching them. It's going to help them to not rely on notes, and it will have a direct impact on their results. The third thing is to follow through on those communications. If I ever see anybody writing anything during class, I just stop and I say, hey, what you writing down there? If they are writing extra notes, then we just stop right there and we have a discussion about it and talk about, remember, we are trying to build a muscle here that is not strong yet, and it's not going to get there if we keep reverting back to old methods. And actually, I was thinking this might be a really good area to plan taking a strong stance on, to practice your skill of confident, non-apologetic communication about something that is important. We've talked about those conversations that can be scary at first, and choosing one thing, one area where you can say, this is the area where I am going to toe the line, and I'm going to practice this way of communicating. And toward that end, I have created dun, 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 practice phrases worksheet for you. And this is so you can really sit down with something tangible here and have some suggested phrases already in place for you. And then you can continue to add to this, which is what my intention is for you. So these are, like I like to say, phrases that you like to just keep in your back pocket that you have rehearsed, that you know. And when the time arises and the situation arises where it would be appropriate, you're ready to address that situation. If you decide to start with this area, writing notes, which again, I think would be a simple one, a good one to start with if this makes you nervous thinking about it, then you can practice saying some version of, we're trying to build a new muscle, which requires less reliance on written information. Now, I want you to make this phrase your own and say it in words that you would say. Practice saying that, practice it in front of the mirror. And then more importantly, I think you should practice recording yourself saying that phrase and listening to the recording so you can really hear what you sound like, and then you can tweak it as you feel the need. But you might, so for this, you might say, look, we're trying to build a muscle here, and if you're writing notes, that muscle is going to atrophy, or it's never going to get anywhere. Or if you're writing notes, you're missing out on the opportunity that this program offers because you're not building that muscle. Just whatever way feels natural to you. And then you may have some other ones, and so you write those down. So the relationship conversation, you can do these in your own time because these are topics that have already been discussed, but this is just a general resource for you. I do want to mention this one because this has always been my favorite one. That I heard Neil say it, and I thought, that's brilliant. It's not judgmental at all. It's not accusatory or negative. If you've got a student, for example, that is always saying, oh, I had so many homework assignments this week, and I had soccer practice, and I had tennis practice, and if it just keeps happening over and over again, you can just say some version of this. I totally get it. You're really busy. I really understand that. It just doesn't work for me. That phrase, it just doesn't work for me, is the best at conveying what you're really trying to convey in a friendly way, but getting the point across. And then I've included some general phrases that work for lots of different situations. Trust the process is one that works throughout the entire curriculum. And so I would encourage you to print this out and keep this in mind. We'll have you put this in your training tab of your binder. Just remember, as you're going along, as you're teaching, is when you're probably going to come up with these phrases that you would like to add.